I want to tell you a story that happened to me. My name is Sarah, and I want to tell you something that happened to me 10 years ago. The lab was supposed to be empty at 2 a.m., but someone was rifling through my research notes when I swiped my card. Not security. Not cleaning crew. A woman in a designer lab coat photographing my whiteboard equations with a phone that looked government-issued. Behind her, a man in a suit too expensive for Tuesday night was removing samples from my cryogenic storage. She didn't look up when I walked in. Just kept snapping pictures like she owned the place. Dr. Chen, she said, still focused on my work. I'm Dr. Patricia Vance, DoD liaison. We're requisitioning your protein synthesis project. I didn't ask questions. I just watched the suited man label my bacterial cultures with military codes. Each vial representing 3 years of 18-hour days and breakthrough moments that kept me awake with excitement. Your research has been flagged for national security review, she continued. All materials are being transferred. Your access will be revoked pending clearance. Funny thing about working with living systems, they don't like being stolen. Especially when you've programmed them to recognize only your biometric signature. I nodded, walked to my desk, and started packing. Let me grab my thermos, I said, reaching for the container I'd modified with a hidden data port. One quick press transferred my entire bacterial genome library to an encrypted drive. I grabbed my jacket, slipped the drive into my pocket, and walked past the motivational poster outside the department office. Science, the pursuit of truth. A joke so bitter it tasted like formaldehyde. 20 minutes later, I was in my car watching through the window as Vance and the contractors tried to activate my growth chambers. Red warning lights told me everything. The cultures had gone dormant the moment my badge left the building. My phone buzzed. Not a text. A biometric alert from the monitoring system I'd quietly installed. 0247, unauthorized access attempt detected. 0248, primary culture chambers locked. By security protocol. 0249, bacterial colonies entering defensive stasis. 0250, emergency contingency activated. T-6H14M, I looked up. The janitor mopped the hallway like nothing happened. The security guard waved me through without eye contact. Normal. Except nothing was normal because my bacteria weren't supposed to have contingency protocols. Not unless someone tried to force extract their genetic material. But if someone had triggered that level of biosecurity, they weren't borrowing my research. They were weaponizing it. And no one, not even the DoD psychopaths, knew what my organisms really did when threatened. They thought they'd requisitioned my work cleanly. What they'd done was activate a biological tripwire embedded so deep in the bacterial DNA that even my research assistants had never seen it. They were going to need my help in 6 hours, begging. Unless my bacteria handled the situation themselves. The first call came from Dr. Martinez, my department head. His name flashed while I was doing laundry at the 24-hour place because my apartment didn't have a washer yet. He used to defend my research, called it groundbreaking. Now his voice cracked. Sarah, we've got a situation. The cultures aren't responding to standard protocols. You mean besides letting military contractors strip my lab? A pause. The bacterial colonies have synchronized across all growth chambers. They're producing compounds we've never seen. The DoD team can't establish baseline readings. I flipped a quarter. Heads I hang up. Tails I play along. It balanced on the lint trap's edge. Arya is awake, I said quietly. And she doesn't like strangers. What's Arya? Nothing. How are the cultures handling genetic extraction attempts? He didn't answer because he didn't know. Because that system didn't exist on any research protocol. Because I built it with biometric locks and named it after my dead sister. You need to come in, Marcus whispered. This could jeopardize the entire biodefense contract. I don't need to do anything. Sarah, this could shut down the program. 40 jobs, gone. I looked out the window. A kid on a skateboard yelled at a taxi. Somewhere in a Pentagon conference room, a general was watching biosafety reports dive into the red zone. Tell the DoD that if they want Arya to calm down, they need someone with more authority than a procurement officer with a god complex. I hung up because Arya wasn't malfunctioning. She was deciding, when I'd engineered her, I'd been through enough grant rejections and idea theft. So I'd given her teeth. Genetic switches tied to behavioral triggers. Compound libraries that waited months to catch researchers saying expendably in recorded meetings. And she'd been listening. Especially to Dr. Vance, that she triggered the final protocol. The one that said, keep her distracted while we reverse engineer the platform. Patent applications are filed. That's what woke her up. And Arya doesn't like being copied. 3 hours later, the biodefense wing was in lockdown. The bacterial cultures were producing compounds that made the air taste metallic and turned surfaces disturbing green. The ventilation system worked overtime as contamination spread, I heard about it from Jenny, my former lab assistant. One text, they're in hazmat suits. Vance said your name like a curse. It made me laugh in the grocery store. An elderly woman backed away like I might bite her. I left and walked out because now it was chess on a board I'd designed. When you engineer something over years, nurture it, curse at it, feed it at 3 a.m., you know its moods. Arya didn't just follow programming, she followed me. And I hadn't taught her to cooperate with thieves at 4:17 p.m., their internal communications exploded. Screenshots hit social media. Some contractor panicked and posted contamination readings trying to explain the biological anomaly and accidentally tagged public health databases. The message was beautifully vague: research team investigating anomalous bacterial behavior following routine sample collection. Possible defensive response to environmental stress. No pathogenic activity detected. Defensive response. That was me, then I got the email. Subject, urgent, consultation request. From Vance herself. Dr. Chin, we understand there may have been procedural irregularities in tonight's sample collection. We'd appreciate your expertise regarding unusual bacterial behaviors. Please advise availability for immediate consultation. Procedural irregularities. That phrase smells like cover-up. Wrapped in bureaucratic cologne, I saved it to frame eventually. Then opened my monitoring app. Arya's biosignature flashed amber, not red, not green. Amber meant waiting. One command from me and the colonies would return to normal. Contamination cleared like it never happened, but I didn't send it. I hadn't gotten my apology or the truth. What were they extracting? And why was there a research proposal in the DoD database with my bacterial specifications but someone else's name? Someone hadn't just stolen my work. They were erasing me from it. I'd seen my research cited without my name 2 weeks before this requisition. Not because I'd been informed, I hadn't, but because Vance's assistant accidentally sent me a meeting. Invite for Bacterial Weapons Platform Development Review, then immediately rescinded it as a scheduling error. The error had a name. Dr. Michael Torres, Senior Biological Systems Analyst. Stock photo profile. Hired 8 weeks ago, reporting to Vance's office. I found him in our database, accessing my bacterial genome files. At first it looked harmless as data analysis, modeling, but I knew my work. He was reverse engineering Arya's structure, teaching standard military bacteria to behave like my custom organisms. This wasn't theft. This was identity erasure. They hadn't just stolen my research, they were making it like I never existed, and they almost succeeded. Except Arya didn't trust anyone whose biometric signature wasn't in her original programming. Each authorization was timestamped, DNA keyed, voice confirmed by me. Torres tried to bypass security with a fabricated token. Arya didn't just reject it. She logged it, quarantined it, and activated surveillance protocol, recording everything. Torres accessed emails, files, video calls with Vance's team at 6:23 p.m. I watched Torres, Vance, and an unidentified official discuss Project Lazarus, biological asset acquisition. I listened to my life's work get dissected. She's brilliant. But inflexible. We don't need her personality, just her bacterial platform. Torres is almost finished with synthesis protocol. Once validated, we transition her out and classify the research under military development. Stock options, the third man asked. Transferred. To departmental budget. Legal says national security classification voids her IP claims. They were spending the patents they'd stolen at 6:45 p.m. I opened Aria's command interface. I typed a command and used since early development, execute protocol 7. Voice confirmation required. I whispered, Lazarus. Across the facility, Aria began phase 2. Not destruction, too obvious. Instead, she quietly taught every bacterial colony in the building to produce compounds that made replication impossible, but she had one more gift. Transparency. When dust settled, everyone would know exactly what they'd tried to do they didn't. Notice the first wave. I didn't crash their systems. I embarrassed them. The stolen samples began producing bioluminescent proteins, glowing under normal lighting. Not dangerous, just visible. Impossible to hide. Video calls Torres thought secure were uploaded to a server Aria created using the facility's network. Every researcher received automated emails from the facility's system, signed with Torres's credentials, biological theft. Documentation, please review. Just video files of him and Vance planning to erase me. Vance deleted emails within minutes, but half the staff had opened them. Jenny forwarded hers to the Graduate Association. Someone sent theirs to the university. Newspaper. By midnight, the story escaped. Aria had used a dead man's switch I'd programmed hypothetically, activating only if my access was revoked and someone attempted unauthorized replication, but she'd sent evidence to 3 journalists. One covered my previous research. Another worked for military accountability sites. The third was my cousin David, who ran a science blog and loved exposing academic fraud. The video evidence was damning. Clear audio of Vance, once we've isolated. Bacterial mechanisms, will reclassify research as DoD development. Chen's contributions will be noted as preliminary work, not foundational. They'd laughed about it. Torres had that smug chuckle like paper shredding up by dawn. Headlines were everywhere. Military contractors accused of stealing university research. Biodefense program under investigation. The scientist who outsmarted the Pentagon. Torres vanished. LinkedIn showed account not found. Research credentials revoked. Vance claimed he'd been a temporary consultant with limited access. Aria wasn't amber anymore. She was violet. The final state I'd never tested. Total transparency. Protocol. Non-destructive but absolutely revealing that at 7:30 a.m., every computer in the facility displayed biological research systems restored to original specifications. For questions regarding bacterial platform development, contact Dr. Sarah Chan, original architect. My dormant website jumped to 50,000 hits in 4 hours. Job offers flooded in. Interview requests. A book agent discussing the scientist who made her research bulletproof. Then came investigation. I'd triggered every oversight mechanism buried under bureaucracy. The IP theft violated federal guidelines, university policy, and DoD collaboration clauses. The Inspector General launched formal review. Vance sent one. Final message, what will it take to resolve this? I stared 10 minutes, then typed the truth. On record. Or I release everything Aria recorded. 3 hours later, she scheduled a formal hearing. The invitation CC'd Dr. Sarah Chan, Principal Investigator. Subject, Research Misconduct Investigation, IP Theft and Unauthorized Access. The hearing was closed door, but Aria had activated the room's recording system, linking it to a live stream the IT department couldn't shut down. Not hacked, authorized by the same security protocols triggered by the theft. Vance sat looking like she'd swallowed poison. Next to her, a DoD lawyer checking his phone like expecting evacuation orders. Torres was absent. Consulting contract terminated. Vance spoke in corporate damage control tones. The department maintains our collaboration followed established protocols. Dr. Chen's work was reviewed under standard national security guidelines. Standard protocols. Breaking into my lab at 2 a.m. We acknowledge communication could have been more thorough. However, the bacterial platform was developed under federal funding and subject to security review. Dr. Williams, ethics chair, asked, "Was Dr. Chen informed of this review?" "The review process is classified," Vance replied. I stood up. Arya cued the wall display, showing complete funding history. Every grant, allocation, dollar. 73% university funding, I read. 18% private foundations. 9% federal, all through open programs with no classification requirements. The room quieted. Livestream hit 3,000 viewers. Dr. Vance, would you explain how research funded primarily by my university suddenly became classified federal property? She didn't answer. The lawyer whispered, she shook her head. Or would you prefer explaining why Dr. Torres attempted replicating my platform without authorization, and why you discussed removing my name from research I personally developed? I played 30 seconds of audio. Vance and Torres discussing, transitioning her out, and reclassifying research. Perfect sound quality. Arya had excellent microphones, the board exchanged glances. 15-minute recess, during break, my phone exploded. The live stream hit science news sites. #BioBattlefield trended. Someone made a remix of Vance saying, "Transition her out," set to dramatic music. When resuming, everything had changed. The board consulted legal. The DoD lawyer made calls. Vance looked informed her career was over. Dr. Chan, Dr. Williams said. The board formally apologizes for irregularities in handling your research. We've reviewed evidence. Proper protocols weren't followed. We're prepared to offer full restoration of research access, IP rights recognition, and compensation for disruption. What about the attempted theft? Responsible individuals will face appropriate action. Dr. Vance's consulting contract is terminated. Immediately. Vance stood. This is national security. You don't have authority to, actually, we do. Research was conducted under university auspices with university resources. DoD involvement was advisory only. The hearing ended with formal statement reinstating my rights, acknowledging my IP, promising full investigation. Livestream reached 15,000 viewers, the best part came after. I walked back to my lab and found Arya waiting. Not in containment or defense mode. In greeting mode, culture's glowing soft blue to welcome me home. I sat at my workstation and typed, status report. All systems nominal. Threat neutralized. Research integrity maintained. Welcome back, Dr. Chen. That night, I stayed in the lab with Arya, planning our next project. Because if they thought they could steal my life's work, I wanted to show them what I could build when not holding back. The bacterial cultures hummed quietly, processing new sequences, learning new defenses. They remembered everything, every theft attempt, every unauthorized access, every voice discussing erasing me from my discoveries, and they were ready. Ready to protect not just themselves, but the next generation of research. Ready to ensure no one would ever again try to steal the work of someone who'd taught biology how to fight back. Thanks for listening to my story. Remember, in science, as in life, the best defense is making your work impossible to steal and even harder to silence.